This is No Strangers Here. I'm Laura Lopez Pineda.
I mean, it wasn't like a dream. I wasn't dreaming of coming to London. Probably if it wasn't for, my imprisonment and being shot and threatened and losing life and all my friends being locked into prison, and I wouldn't even think of leaving Palestine. I mean,
You just heard Osama Kashri. He is Palestinian and he runs Palestine House in London, a community place open for everyone but focused on Palestinian culture. He's been in London for more than 20 years and he refuses to tell you the story you expect.
I'm not here to justify that I'm a good citizen. I came as a refugee. I become very productive. I came to a smaller community. Now it's a bigger community. I was nothing and now become something. Fuck that shit. I've always been something and I've become more thing because that's the nature of me as a human being. Whether I'm in Muzungu or Mozambique or London or Palestine, it is the nature of us. We are all capable human beings, beautiful, lovable, unstoppable, powerful, and that's exactly what we need to cherish and nourish. And that's where we need to be equal, and that's it.
And then there's Ali Abu, who grew up in Germany as an asylum seeker from South Lebanon and chose to come to London a few years ago.
And I feel like in Germany, I would have had the exact same life as all of my friends, which is a great life. But once you look beyond and above, it becomes limiting. And London is, for me so far, the only place where I feel there is no limits. It feels like, as someone who loves and pulls his energy from other people, it feels like I can constantly re-energize me, myself, my identity, my way of living. Every week there's a new idea.
In today's episode, we dive deep into the story of these two men who came to London for different reasons, but something unites them. They cannot go back to their hometown because of the war of Israel against Palestine and Lebanon. Welcome to episode 3. The house you can't return to. High Holborn is one of the busiest roads in London, surrounded by university campuses and countless offices. Right there, Osama decided to open Palestine House, a place designed as a meeting point that welcomes everyone and talks about Palestinian culture and its struggles. The place gives you a family home vibe, like a family house with many relatives who stop by on a Sunday, making it feel alive and a bit chaotic too. You can hear a Palestinian song in the background, waiters serving brunch to customers, people browsing the clothes for sale, and others carrying furniture up to the top floor because later that night a wedding will take place. Every weekend, many more activities unfold in the rest of the house: photography exhibitions, drawing workshops for kids, henna sessions. On weekdays, people come by to use it as a co-working space. Osama got into the UK in 2003. He studied engineering in Palestine and then got involved in activism. He realized that whenever journalists recorded Israeli military activities, the military would be more mindful of its actions. So he got a broken VHS and started pretending he was recording. He adopted the persona of Lorenzo, an Italian journalist. In 2003, he was forced to flee Palestine after organizing protests against a barrier built by Israel inside the West Bank to separate Israel from the Palestinian territory. Although he says he didn't choose London when he first came, you can tell he has chosen to stay here because the city allows him to do projects like Palestine House.
Now, the significance of being in London, and I'm talking about London, not the UK, is because, being surrounded with different colors, different culture, and different communities is something that is rare and unique. And there is a few cities that they can claim that. So it's different between I'm just traveling outside of my comfort zone to find more job opportunities and more kind of peace and prosperity. No. The idea of being in a cosmopolitan city like London is that the enabling fact is the natural fact of you finding your collective in so many different communities, and then you thrive and you kind of get more knowledge, not information, and you create more of the strength for you as a human being. Then you catalyze, you bring more people, you bring more experiences, you tolerate, and then you function as a cell that is there to thrive.
And in that part of building community, Osama and Ali met. Recently, in Palestine House, Ali exhibited some of the pictures he had taken of the war of Israel in South Lebanon. He was born there during an Israeli occupation in the early 90s in a village his family has lived in for generations. When he was 1 year old, the family migrated to Hamburg in Germany as asylum seekers.
So my parents first went to Germany, and then my brother was born, and then they got deported. Then I was born during the Israeli occupation in South Lebanon, and then we went back to Germany, and then that's when my sister was born. So we've been there for like all my life. I was 1 when we went there. We grew up in a asylum-seeker housing, which is very basic. We were 5 people in a 1-bedroom flat first, and then a 2-bedroom. And when I say 2-bedroom, it's 2 rooms. So it's 1 living room, 1 room.
Without IDs, you can't leave the country you lived in. Without papers, you certainly can't visit the one your family fled. Ali didn't have a passport until he was 16. That's when his family finally got residency in Germany, and that's when he could go for the first time to the country he had only known through phone calls and video cassettes that arrived in the post from relatives he had never met.
I watched my parents having phone calls with families at times where you still would charge like your phone cards and go to these phone cells. I can still remember those video cassettes that would be sent by uncles or aunties who would come back from Lebanon, and they would give us pre-recorded messages from my cousins, my grandfathers and grandmothers. All that really came to life. Yes, you can always imagine the space and the country and your family, but it's not the same as when you actually encounter them. And the air, the nature, the foods, the hospitality, the love that you receive from your family, I think that's beyond any imagination. Because obviously fleeing from your home country also means that you are being robbed from something that is very normal, which is growing up around, an environment that is filled with family, with love, with histories of your ancestors.
When Ali finally arrived in South Lebanon, relatives he had only ever seen on video were there to greet him. The hospitality was overwhelming. The food was unfamiliar, yet somehow completely familiar. He felt something he has never felt before in Germany.
I think I immediately realized that this is where I naturally belong to. I generally don't believe in that we are these nomads, like people, that we could live anywhere. I think we live, and there's a connection through land that is deeply embedded into our brains and our DNA. And that's the first time when I actually had this feeling, because in Germany I don't have that. Everything is very anonymous. And in Lebanon it was like, okay, I do belong here. Like, these are cemeteries that go thousands of years back with family members of mine buried here. These are trees that my father walked past when he was a child. When I went to the barber the second day, he was like, "Oh, are you the son of XYZ?" I was like, "Oh, how do you know?" "Well, the shape of your head is the same." So even these little things would make you feel, okay, look, I've arrived to somewhere still unknown, but mine.
The natural question you may be asking is, then why didn't he decide to live in Lebanon?
I've always thought about moving there. I thought about doing my master's there. I've applied to American University of Beirut 3 years in a row. I was accepted 3 years in a row, and 3 years in a row I declined.
Why?
Having this relationship to your homeland from afar and never really growing up there is something beautiful when you come back, but it's also something scary, because your illusion of this beautiful place that is always your hideout, something you can go to when everything is falling apart, I didn't want to destroy it because at this point, and ever since, everyone tried to leave Lebanon. And these are good people. These are people who are amazing, who are talented, who are loving, who I appreciate, and they were trying to leave. So I didn't want to ruin my status quo and having this paradise that I could always lean on.
Ali studied and worked in Germany for a few years and then realized it was time to start from scratch somewhere new. That's when he decided to come to London for his master's and then stayed here. But why the UK? Is it not much more similar to Germany than to Lebanon?
I don't think I live in the UK. I live in London. And I think London is a space for everyone, and is welcoming towards everyone. And everyone can find a bubble, can find that something that is missing.
For Ali, it's clear. He decided to stay in London because of the opportunities that the city offers, because here he can amplify the message he's advocating for.
You meet someone randomly in university campus, and that person has founded the biggest educational platform on Palestine in the world. He's 22. At the same time, my colleague tells me, hey, you want to come to Malaysian laksa after work? I was like, sure. What's laksa? What's Malaysian food? You can go to Caribbean cuisine in Dalston, and there's like a chicken imbes behind a corner. You'll find Palestine House, right? In the middle of London, you will find Ibraz, which is a Tunisian exhibition space with a coffee shop, with a bookstore where you can buy Arab books on Arab identity. I probably have now people I know that are from every country possible. And I think that introduced me to it in the beginning.
According to data from the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, as of mid-2025, there were approximately 548,000 refugees in the UK. That's less than 1% of the total population in the UK. However, in recent years, far-right parties have pushed the idea that asylum seekers in the UK are one of the top national problems as they are a burden on the economy. In reality, the support they receive from the government is just £40 per week, a little less than £6 a day, according to the UN Refugee Agency. Other immigrants are not even entitled to claim government benefits. Because of that narrative, migrants are now expected to prove their worth as individuals. The story they are supposed to tell goes like this: I came here with nothing, I worked hard, I integrated, I am grateful, I am one of the good ones. It's a story shaped by what host countries want to hear, and by whatever makes the speaker safer. It's also a story that flattens people into a single, palatable figure, the deserving migrant. Osama refuses that story completely.
And this is the concept of where I think we need to be very realistic on the narrative and how can we portray it. And I don't need to kind of like explain myself. Like, it's not about like I come here and I'm a good character. I'm good. No, I refuse that. I'm the bad guy. That's it. It's up to you to discover the good guy. I'm not going to justify myself. I'm going to just basically add to your narrative. If you think that we are the bad people coming here to take over your jobs, yes, it's me. I'm one of those bad guys.
When Osama first arrived in London, he got enrolled at the National Film and Television School in Beaconsfield, on the outskirts of London. He lied about his parents' nationality and said they had lots of money to get in.
I mean, I made money. I was illegal. I made money somehow. I actually, the first time I made money, it was by breaking to Kew Garden. I was very, very, very interested in the Queen diary. I'll tell you why. And I've discovered that every time there's a really high profile guest for the Queen is a good opportunity for me to make money. How? Because obviously the orchid that they use for that occasion, 3 days later, it will be recycled in Kew Garden. So I break into Kew Garden and I take all of this beautiful, expensive orchid from the after party of the Queen. I package it nicely. I have a very old bathtub. I always fill it with water in our squat. I was squatting. and I sell it for £1. And I used to kind of have a very famous slogan, is like wicked orchid for £1. Say free Palestine and take it for £1. And that's basically was, I used to make like £200-300. And so like the Queen's kind of like agenda and diary was very important for me for that reason. And it's the first money I've made. And I used to have like £300 a week out of the like wicked orchid that was chucked away after the Queen's kind of like celebration of like meeting this kind of head of states.
Telling stories on its own term is so important to Osama that it led him to walk away from the documentary and filmmaking industry, even after winning some prizes.
When I finished my filmmaking, it's a noble thing to do, to be able to communicate your stories, but then you realize that they've just franchised you to tell your story their way. And okay, let me just tell you something. The fact that you tell your story using the tools of the Western society doesn't mean it's your story. It's the version of the story that it works for them, and that's not your narrative. And that is almost what Hollywood and what the film industry has been producing, a franchise way of telling stories. So if you're out of this, you're not a filmmaker, you're not a gatekeeper, you're not going to be allowed to have a platform.
Being a migrant is often described as carrying multiple identities, always carrying something from your home. In Osama's case, he carries a key. When Palestinians were expelled from their homes in 1948, many locked their front doors behind them and took the keys. They expected to be back within weeks. Instead, those keys have now been passed down through generations. Children who never saw the houses still keep them. Grandchildren born in refugee camps across the Arab world and later in cities far beyond that keep them too. The key has become one of the most recognized symbols of the Palestinian right of return. Osama keeps one, and in Palestine House you can see keys everywhere, woven into the decoration of the place.
Key is also very important because of the right of return for us in Palestine. For example, is the key that we will go back to in our house. And there's a key here in this building where it belongs to my great-grandfather house, where he was chucked away, and the only thing that he took with him was the key. So I have our own real key to our houses, which is in Jaffa, around Tel Aviv, where our house belongs.
Osama's way of remembrance is by carrying the key of a house that now probably looks very different, while Ali's way is through his pictures. That's why he carries a camera with him.
So I've always taken pictures of Lebanon. I mean, it's a beautiful country, right? You have the mountains, you have no desert, the only country, the Arab country without a desert. You have the beach, you have the animals, you have the food, you have the people, you have the culture that goes back thousands of years, one of the oldest civilizations in the world. So I've always taken pictures and videos to document it, right? But having that war and having then a camera was more like, okay, and the fact that no one talks about it, because everyone was talking still about Palestine, and rightly so, but no one was talking about that front that sacrificed everything in support and solidarity of the Palestinian people. And I just took my camera and took pictures to give them a voice through what I'm capable of, because I don't live there. I'm not a fighter by any means, but I live outside. I speak a language they don't speak, or have access to people they don't. So why not taking the pictures back to an environment where South Lebanon can be replicated?
And beyond documenting it for others, taking pictures of South Lebanon and the war is a way for him to keep a personal track of his hometown, and a way to keep memories of things that may not last. A hometown he wasn't allowed to inhabit, neither as a child nor as an adult.
Because these moments are forever, and nothing is forever in Lebanon, which is sad, because you don't know if you're going to see that person, that structure, that tree, the next time you're there. I've just looked at my WhatsApp messages this morning, and I saw my cousins posting a satellite picture of a house that was destroyed this morning. That was right next to my uncle's house. And it's a house I walk past every day when I'm there. And that's gone. and it never will be the same house. Or trees that I walk past and just burn to ashes when Israel is using white phosphorus bombs that are illegal to burn agricultural lands or human beings. So things you take pictures of so they last forever. And when I think of my mother, my father, my uncles, my grandmothers, they don't take pictures. They take pictures when there's a wedding or something else, but they don't take pictures on everyday life, which is quite sad because it's amazing to capture moments that last forever.
Aquí, a photograph two objects held in two hands in the same city. Both of them are amplifying the voice of those in their homeland. And both of them, in their own way, are pushing against a script they were handed when they arrived. The script of the good refugee, the integrated migrant, or the success story that ends with gratitude and a passport. Both of these men see it in London because here they can build their own lives on their own terms and share with the world a part of their homeland. This story was reported and produced by me, Laura Lopez Pineda. The script was written by Amrin Nas and edited by Andrea Torres Perdomo. Our social media manager is Joy London. Shilpa Joseph is part of the team. The music was composed by Max London. Thanks. We'll meet in the next episode.